Government spending is out of control. And those we sent to Washington to cut spending are spending even more. They do that with earmarks. What is an earmark? It's just one kind of old-fashioned pork barrel spending that members of Congress insert into legislation. They can be requested by only one chamber of Congress, not specifically authorized, not competitively awarded, not requested by the President, greatly exceeds the President's budget request or the previous year's funding, not the subject of congressional hearings, or serves only one local or special interest. These earmarks occur during conference committee without debate or discussion, like $750,000 for grasshopper research in Alaska and $50 million for an indoor rainforest in Coralville, Iowa. Once inserted, the members are then stuck voting for a bloated version of legislation or starting the entire process over from scratch. Earmarks are often the result of sweetheart deals with special interest groups. They're meant to buy votes back home with our money.
The Founding Fathers never intended for federal dollars to finance local projects. We have gotten so far away from the concept of what the federal government was supposed to do that it is dangerous.
Earmarking undermines the whole process, because if you have an earmark in a bill, then it doesn't matter whatever else is in the bill. You've given up your rights to be critical of the rest of the bill, and you vote for it. And so consequently, we see people voting for bills that they'd never vote for because they have a vested interest in one small segment of the bill to the detriment of the rest of the country.
I think the reason why earmarks are such a growing problem is because of a lack of transparency. Many people don't know that the term earmark comes from agriculture. You put an earmark on a cow so you know who owns the cow. But in the budget process today, people can add earmarks to the budget at the last minute and never have to take credit for it. We ought to at least require that members of Congress who make requests for special funding put their names on it.
In 1987, President Reagan vetoed a spending bill because it contained 121 earmarks. By 1994, the number swelled to 1,318 pork barrel projects. And in fiscal year 2005, there were nearly 16,000, a 1,104% increase just since 1994. And politicians from both sides of the aisle can't resist the temptation to spend taxpayer money to stay in power.
Earmarks are an enormous problem, because if we can't get this one example, the most outrageous spending there is for unaccountable projects, for the worst kind of pork and waste and abuse, if we can't get these under control, we're never going to get federal spending under control.
The entire federal budget of $2.57 trillion is composed of thousands of programs and projects, most of which waste our money in some way. And climbing from $649 billion to $900 billion, discretionary outlays have jumped 39% during the Bush presidency.
We have to reform the institution, and the institution is us. And what we have to do is put roadblocks so that we can't fall prey to the human tendency of putting ourselves ahead of the best interests of the country. And by eliminating earmarks, you eliminate 80% of the problems in terms of where reforms are needed.
I think of what was called the broken windows policy in the city of New York, where Mayor Giuliani said the first thing we're going to do is fix the broken windows and stop the misdemeanors from happening, and that'll stop the major crimes. I think if we get serious about ending the small abuses in the federal budget, we'll be able to develop the national will to confront the real abuses in the national budget, which have to do with runaway mandatory and discretionary spending.
It is important to get control of federal spending, quite simply because if we do not, we are headed for economic collapse. It's not something that people want to hear, but it is the truth. Economic collapse of the greatest nation and the greatest economy in the world.
Can you have prosperity if you're bankrupt as a nation? Can you have prosperity if the government starts taking more than about 21 or 22% of GDP? Does Germany have prosperity today? They're 42% of their GDP the government consumes. That's where we're headed.
This current spending is dangerous. Today, big government touches every aspect of our lives. It not only lessens individual liberty, it creates a permanent temptation for corruption at the taxpayer's expense. Just talking about it isn't enough. Something has to be done.
The one thing that gives me hope that we can change the situation, that we can turn this Titanic. Former Senator Everett Dirksen, he summed it up best. Until they feel the heat, they will not see the light. Until they feel the heat, they will not see the light. The heat is not going to come from within Congress. The heat has to come from without. There you have the reason for why we need an organization like Americans for Prosperity.
That's why Americans for Prosperity Foundation is spearheading a major new initiative to create fundamental changes in how Americans perceive their government. Americans for Prosperity has a three-part action plan to mobilize grassroots support for a permanent end to Washington's pork barrel free-for-all. First, a television campaign to educate the public about what Congress has been getting away with behind closed doors. These hard-hitting ads will energize, mobilize, and recruit thousands of new grassroots activists. Here are a couple of ads currently in development. In this ad, an energetic presenter explains the audacious new award and his goal to make a surprise delivery to a deserving congressman. He finds the unsuspecting congressman with a full camera crew in tow and attempts to present the award, all the while explaining the outrageousness of his spending on some special earmark project. Of course, the congressman flees and does all he can to avoid receiving this award. The message here being, let's put the spotlight on Congress and wasteful pork barrel spending. This ad shows a stylish earmark pig as the camera pulls back to reveal more pigs being escorted in front of the Capitol. Meanwhile, the voiceover states how these earmarks are all the rage in Washington these days. Everyone has one. The voice continues to say that Congress is spending billions on these pet projects and that the American taxpayer is being taken for a ride. We then watch the pigs ride off in a limo. Each of these ads would end with a vital appeal to join the massive grassroots effort of Americans for Prosperity Foundation to stop government's wasteful spending. The second part is an all-out grassroots effort, urging citizens to demand that their elected representatives be responsible. Third, an Ending Earmarks Express bus tour to visit the most outrageous earmark projects around the country. This media-intensive event will generate both national and local publicity as it crisscrosses the country exposing the dirty little secrets Congress wants to hide.
My vision is when they get home and they're in the grocery store, someone walks up to them and says, you know what, don't spend my money on frivolous stuff. My goal is when they have a town hall meeting, 8, 10, 12, 15 AFP members are there demanding action. My goal is that when they turn on the TV at night for the 6 o'clock news and they have the tray in front of them and they're eating dinner and they're watching the news, to see an ad about this or coverage of a news conference by AFP members. My goal is that when they are in Washington, it's not over. There's no escape there either. They're getting letters, emails, phone calls, visits in their Washington offices.
Congress only changes when America demands it to change. And so if we can wake up America to what's actually happening, they'll demand the change. And because politicians want to get reelected more than they want anything else, they'll listen to the American people and they'll change.
I don't believe the effort could succeed without the grassroots. There's a reason why our Constitution begins with 3 words: we the people. When the American people decide on a direction, the Congress responds.
The Wall Street Journal put it this way: earmarking, the process by which members secure special pork projects, such as Alaska's infamous $223 million bridge to nowhere. Pork is an inevitable product of political compromise, but earmarks are a particularly corrupt form. If limited government advocates don't turn things around now, we may lose the opportunity forever. Free market concepts will always prevail in the marketplace of ideas, but in the practical world of politics, grassroots pressure is the only way to compel politicians to put these important ideas into action and bring an end to their wasteful spending.
If you look at across the board at the conservative movement, We're winning in most areas. We really are. There are a lot of good things going on with tort reform, with some education reform, etc. But the area where we're making no progress, I believe, is on fiscal restraint and fiscal discipline, and in reality, spending. And everyone would agree with that. You read the Wall Street Journal, you read George Will's columns, you read the USA Today, even some of the liberal newspapers and media outlets, they all agree on that. Spending is out of control. And if we can't take the most outrageous element of it, these anonymous earmarks, if we can't stop those, then we're never going to get the budget under control.
If you are a grandparent, all you have to do is look in that little face, and it'll make you realize that we have a responsibility not to leave our grandkids a disaster. Yes, we wanted to do things to give our kids a little bit better start in life. But it's different when you look at your grandkids, because their start in life could be a whole lot different if we don't clean up some of this disaster that we're about to create.
I support the Americans for Prosperity's call for reforming earmarks, because only by having a one-year moratorium will we have the opportunity to step back and develop the kinds of reforms that will be necessary to restore public confidence in the fiscal and ethical integrity of Congress.
And the fact that they're willing to put forward effort and money and time to try to change things, I just wish there were more like Americans for Prosperity out there doing it.
Our goal, it isn't just to reform earmarks. It's not to rein them in. It's not to slow them down. It's to end them. It's to end earmarks once and for all. And that's our goal. That's our mission at AFP, and we're going to get it done.